3 years ago, I killed 40 tomato seedlings in 1 week. Not from a freeze, not from bugs, from doing the exact things every gardening blog tells you to do. If your seedlings are yellowing, wilting, or just stalling out, and you don't know why, one of these 7 mistakes is almost certainly the reason. And number 4, that's the one that took me 2 full seasons to figure out, so stick around for that one specifically. Here's the thing nobody tells you about seedling deaths. They almost never come from one big disaster. They come from a handful of small, well-meaning habits stacking up until the plant just gives out. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why your seedlings are struggling and how to fix each problem before transplant season. These aren't theoretical tips. They're lessons I learned after making every one of these mistakes myself, across more than 2,000 seedlings and 3 growing seasons. So we're going in order, one mistake at a time, what it looks like, why it happens, and the exact fix. No filler, no, just give it more love, just what actually works. Numbers 1 and 4 are behind more failed seedlings than almost any other mistakes gardeners make. So if you only remember 2 things from this video, make them these. Let's start with the mistake almost everyone is making right now, without even realizing it. Mistake number 1 is overwatering, and it's probably the most well-intentioned mistake on this list, because while you're doing it, it doesn't feel like a mistake at all. It feels like you're helping. Here's the trap. You walk past your seed tray, notice a few leaves starting to droop, and without thinking, you reach for the watering can. Every instinct tells you they're thirsty, but drooping doesn't always mean thirst. In young seedlings, it's just as often a sign the roots are already sitting in too much water and can't breathe. I made this mistake for years because I assumed wilting always meant thirst. It doesn't. Most people think roots only need water. They don't. Healthy roots spend just as much time breathing as they do drinking. They pull oxygen from the tiny air pockets between soil particles. When that soil stays constantly soaked, those air pockets fill with water. The roots begin to suffocate. And here's the part that catches almost everyone off guard. A suffocating root can't move water into the plant anymore. Ironically, a plant surrounded by water can still die of dehydration. That's why you water again, the roots get even weaker, and the cycle repeats until it ends the same way almost every time. Root rot, a mushy black stem, and a seedling that's already beyond saving before you even realize what happened. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Before you water, every single time, push your finger about 2 inches into the potting mix, roughly to your second knuckle. If it's still cool and damp down there, leave it alone. Seedlings are far more forgiving of being slightly underwatered than they are of sitting in constantly wet soil. That 10-second habit will save more seedlings than almost anything else you'll do this season. Get this habit right, and within a week you'll notice sturdier stems, healthier leaves, and seedlings that actually grow instead of merely surviving. But even perfectly watered seedlings can still become weak, pale, and leggy for a completely different reason, and it's something almost every indoor growing setup gets wrong. That's mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is keeping your grow light too far away, and it's the fastest way to turn a sturdy little seedling into a tall, pale, floppy one. Here's what's actually happening. A seedling stretches toward light because it's trying to survive. It's a built-in survival response called phototropism. But here's the important part. It's not trying to grow bigger. It's trying to escape the shade. If the light source is too far away, or simply too dim, the plant reads that as, "I'm buried under other plants. I need to grow up fast before I run out of energy." So instead of building a thick, sturdy stem, it pours almost all of its energy into height. That's how you end up with those tall, thin, almost see-through stems that can't even support their own weight. A windowsill is usually the biggest offender here, even a bright south-facing one, because natural light loses intensity incredibly fast the farther it travels from the glass. To you, that windowsill looks bright. To your seedling, it's often little more than shade. It might look like it's getting plenty of light, but just 6 inches back, it's receiving only a fraction of what it actually needs to grow strong. The fix is surprisingly simple. If you're using a grow light, keep it just 2 to 3 inches above the tops of your seedlings, close enough that you'll be raising it every few days as they grow. In fact, It's close enough that most first-time gardeners think it's too close. But that's exactly where it needs to be. Not hanging high above the tray to be safe. Close. Consistently close. Get the light right, and within just a few days you'll notice thicker stems, tighter spacing between the leaves, and seedlings that stop reaching and start growing. But even the strongest, healthiest seedlings can still fail if they're moved straight from a warm indoor shelf into a breezy afternoon outside without any preparation. That transplant shock is mistake number 3, and it's where many perfectly healthy seedlings are lost just days before they should be thriving. Mistake number 3 is taking your seedlings straight from indoors to the garden in one move. No transition, no warning. And I completely understand why people do it. You've waited weeks for these seedlings to grow, the weather finally looks good, and you just want them in the ground already. But think about what that seedling has actually experienced up to this point. Still air, steady temperatures, gentle light from a window or a grow lamp. Then, in a single afternoon, you expect it to handle blazing sun, gusty wind, changing temperatures, and drying air all at once. That's not a gentle upgrade. That's a shock to a plant that has no defenses built up for any of it yet. The leaves your seedling grew indoors simply aren't built for that environment. They're thinner, softer, and far more sensitive to intense sunlight. A few hours of direct afternoon sun can scorch them almost like a sunburn. And the stem hasn't yet developed the strength that comes from bending and flexing in real wind. Plants actually respond to that gentle movement by building stronger stems. Skip that adjustment period, and a seedling that looked perfectly healthy on your windowsill can be lying flat by the end of the day. The fix is a simple 7-day hardening-off routine. On days 1 and 2, place your seedlings outside for just an hour or two in a sheltered, shaded location. Over the next several days, gradually increase both the amount of time they spend outdoors and the amount of direct sunlight they receive. By day 7, they should be comfortable spending an entire day outside. It feels painfully slow when you're eager to plant, but those 7 days are the difference between a seedling that shrugs off transplant day and one that never fully recovers. Get this right, and transplant day stops feeling like a gamble. Your seedlings settle in faster, recover quicker, and keep growing instead of struggling to survive. But even a perfectly hardened-off seedling can still fail if you plant it on the wrong day, and the mistake isn't what most people think. It has nothing to do with the date on the calendar. It comes down to something happening beneath the soil that most gardeners never think to check. That mistake cost me 2 full growing seasons before I finally figured it out. And it's the one I promised you at the beginning. Okay, number 4. The one I told you about at the beginning. The mistake that took me 2 full growing seasons to figure out. And honestly, it changed the way I transplant forever. Here it is. For 2 years, I did everything right. I watched the weather forecast religiously. The moment it promised warm days and no more frost, I transplanted. And almost every single time, the exact same thing happened. My seedlings would go into shock. They'd stop growing. Some leaves would turn purple around the edges. Then they'd just sit there. For 2 or 3 weeks, nothing. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I overwatered. Maybe I underwatered. Maybe I didn't harden them off long enough. I went back through every step I'd taken, convinced I had missed something. But I hadn't. I was simply measuring the wrong thing. Here's what almost nobody tells you. Air warms up much faster than soil does. You can have a beautiful sunny 75-degree afternoon while the ground just a few inches below the surface is still cold from weeks of cool weather. Soil holds on to that cold far longer than the air, and your seedlings don't care what the air feels like. Their roots only know the temperature of the soil they're sitting in. And here's the part that finally made everything click for me. Cold roots don't just grow slowly. They practically hit the pause button. They stop taking up nutrients efficiently. New root growth slows dramatically, and the entire plant seems frozen in place. That's why your seedlings can look alive, but refuse to grow, even though the weather feels perfect to you. The fix that changed everything for me was incredibly simple. Stop trusting the air forecast to tell you when it's time to transplant. Instead, spend a few dollars on a soil thermometer. Push it about 4 inches into the bed where you're planting, and check the temperature there, not in the air above it. For most warm-season vegetable seedlings, like tomatoes and peppers, You'll want the soil consistently around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or 16 Celsius, or warmer for several days, not just during one warm afternoon. The first season I started doing this, it honestly felt like I was gardening in a completely different yard. Same seedlings, same garden, same watering routine. The only thing I changed was waiting for the soil instead of the weather. And suddenly those seedlings stopped sulking for weeks after transplant. They rooted in faster, started growing almost immediately, and that frustrating spring slowdown simply disappeared. That's genuinely the fix that saved my entire spring, and it's exactly why I told you to stick around for this one. 4 mistakes down, 3 more to go. And the next one isn't about temperature at all. It's about something that feels completely harmless, even helpful, giving your seedlings a little too much company in the tray. Mistake number 5 is packing too many seedlings into one cell or one small pot, thinking you're saving space or giving yourself better odds. It feels harmless. It isn't. Every seedling in that tiny space is competing for the exact same resources, the same light, the same water, the same nutrients, the same airflow, and the same root space. At first, they can all look perfectly healthy, but beneath the surface, a competition has already started. Every bit of energy one seedling gains is energy another seedling doesn't. The stronger plants race ahead, while the weaker ones slowly fall behind, even if you don't notice it yet. And the competition isn't just happening above the soil. Underground, their roots are weaving together into one tangled mass. By the time you're ready to transplant, separating them without tearing roots becomes almost impossible. You end up damaging the healthiest seedling just trying to save the others, and all that stress follows it into the garden. The fix is one most gardeners struggle with the first time because it feels completely backwards. Thin early and thin decisively. As soon as the first true leaves appear, not the small rounded seed leaves, but the first real leaves that follow, choose the strongest seedling in each cell and snip the rest off at the soil line. Don't pull them out. Pulling can disturb the roots of the seedling you're trying to keep, while a quick snip leaves those roots undisturbed. I know it feels wasteful to cut down perfectly healthy seedlings. Every gardener hesitates the first time, but you're not throwing away your harvest. You're choosing where the plant's energy goes. One healthy seedling with room to grow will almost always outperform 3 seedlings competing against each other from the very beginning. Speaking of good intentions backfiring, the next mistake happens when gardeners try to give their seedlings an early boost with fertilizer, and accidentally set them back instead. Mistake number 6 is reaching for fertilizer too soon, usually because your seedlings look a little small or slow, and you want to give them a boost. It's one of the most well-meaning mistakes gardeners make. It makes perfect sense at first. Plants need nutrients to grow, so giving them more nutrients sooner should help them grow faster, right? The problem is that a brand new seedling simply isn't ready yet. Its root system is still tiny, fine, delicate, and only just beginning to establish itself. To roots that young, full-strength fertilizer isn't a gentle meal. It's more like an overwhelming dose they aren't equipped to handle. Because fertilizer is made up of concentrated mineral salts, applying it too early can actually draw moisture out of those fragile root hairs faster than the plant can replace it, leaving the very roots you're trying to help under even more stress. Here's the part that surprises most beginners. Those tiny seedlings aren't relying on the soil for all of their food yet. The seed itself came packed with everything the plant needs to power its first stage of growth. Those first rounded seed leaves, and often even the first true leaves, are fueled mostly by the energy stored inside the seed before it ever sprouted. The fix is simply knowing when to step in. Wait until your seedling has developed its second set of true leaves before introducing any fertilizer. And when you do, start with a half-strength solution. By that stage, the seed's built-in food reserve is running low, the root system is much better established, and the plant is finally ready to make good use of those extra nutrients. Get the timing right, and fertilizer becomes a tool instead of a setback. Get it wrong, and you're trying to solve a problem your seedling didn't actually have. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for a young plant is simply give it a little more time. And that lesson leads perfectly into the final mistake, one that proves seedlings often struggle not because we neglect them, but because we love them a little too much. Mistake number 7, and the final mistake on this list, is letting your seedlings sit in completely still air, with no gentle airflow around them at all. This one's incredibly easy to miss, because it doesn't look like a mistake. It just looks like a tray sitting quietly on a shelf. But to a fungus, that's almost the perfect environment. Still, humid air creates the conditions for a disease called damping off. The reason so many perfectly healthy-looking seedlings suddenly collapse right at the soil line overnight, as if someone had snipped the stem with a pair of scissors. Without gentle air movement, moisture lingers on the soil surface and around the stems far longer than it should. That creates a warm, damp pocket of air, exactly where fungal spores love to grow. Outdoors, nature solves this problem for you. Every breeze dries the soil a little, moves humid air away from the stems, and makes it much harder for fungal diseases to take hold. Indoors, your seedlings never get that protection unless you create it yourself. The fix is one of the easiest on this entire list. Place a small oscillating fan near your seedlings and let it run for an hour or two each day. You don't want the plants whipping back and forth, you just want enough movement that the leaves gently flutter. That light breeze helps dry the soil surface, discourages fungal growth, and as a bonus, encourages the stems to grow thicker and stronger before transplanting. And that's all 7. Overwatering, keeping your lights too far away, skipping the hardening-off week, trusting the air instead of the soil, crowding your seedlings, fertilizing too early, and forgetting about airflow. Every one of those mistakes is completely fixable, and in most cases, the solution takes just a few minutes. The difference isn't having a greener thumb. It's knowing what your seedlings actually need, and resisting the urge to give them everything else. So here's what I want you to do with all of this. Not go out and try to fix all 7 things today. That's the fastest way to overwhelm yourself, and end up fixing none of them well. Instead, pick just one. Go check on your seedlings today, and look for just one of these 7 mistakes. For most people, it'll be either number 1, the watering habit, or number 4, checking the air temperature instead of the soil. Those are the 2 mistakes I've seen, and made myself, more than almost anything else. One small adjustment made today can completely change what your garden looks like a few weeks from now. That's often the difference between walking out to strong, thriving plants, or walking out in June wondering why you have to start all over again. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's this. Successful seedlings don't need perfect gardeners. They just need gardeners who understand what they actually need and know when to leave them alone. I killed 40 seedlings figuring these lessons out, so you don't have to. So if this video saves even one tray of yours, hit the like button. It really does help this video reach more gardeners who need it. And let me know down in the comments, which of these 7 mistakes have you made, or is there one that should have made the list? I read every comment, and your suggestion might end up becoming the next video. If you're new here, subscribe. We've got a lot more practical gardening guides and mistake and fix breakdowns coming throughout the growing season. Until then, go check your trays. They might be trying to tell you something.